Imagine you're in the 6th grade. You just finished your work and you're flipping through your health book. You run across a picture. Most people, that picture wouldn't really mean anything. But to me, the picture was oddly familiar. Because it was the thing that had always been on my mom's back. And I'll never forget what that picture says under it. It says, "This is an example of stage 4 melanoma skin cancer, one of the deadliest forms of cancer in the world." My mind's racing, my heart drops, everything. I'm going crazy, jumping to conclusions. So I race home to show my mom the book just so she can reassure me that I'm just tripping. She blows it off, but it doesn't reassure me of anything. That comparison was just too close. So my mom loved to ask me and my brother to massage her back. And I told her that we would not massage her back anymore until she went and got it checked out. A month later, she was diagnosed with stage 4 melanoma skin cancer. She was set to have a football-sized tumor removed from her back. All this information couldn't have come at a worse time. My grandmother, her mom, had just passed away from kidney cancer. She was the primary caregiver in our household, and so we were evicted once we couldn't afford it anymore. Over the next 2 years, we were homeless, living with friends, family, eventually ending up in churches and ultimately a shelter. I especially hated the shelter. They always pandered us with this fake compassion and false sincerity. But in a way, it made me so cynical and hopeful at the same time about humanity. My brother was in jail. My other brother was expelled. We had just moved from a little county to the city where people didn't really respect people from the county. After those 2 years, we finally found a new home in Southside Richmond, one of the worst neighborhoods. Most people in this room probably wouldn't step foot in there. But to me, it felt like I had just moved into a mansion. We were ready to live a better life. My brother was out of jail. My other brother was back in school. We had a little bit more money so that we could get more clothes and things like that. I got accepted to one of the best college preparatory schools in all of Richmond. The best part about all of this, my mom's cancer was in remission. All of this was short-lived, though. Later on that year, my mom's cancer came back with a vengeance, spreading across her whole body. The neighborhood that I was so happy to be a part of rejected me. I wasn't white, but I wasn't black enough for them. My dad's alcoholism reached an all-time high. My life was just unraveling in front of me all over again. During this time that my mom was dying, I want you to think about it from 2 different perspectives, though. One being if you were a 40-year-old mother, no real education or anything. 2 adolescent children you haven't set any plans for. You've taught them survival. You're in pain, both mentally and physically, from all the radiation, the chemo, surgeries, and you're losing your mind. And you don't know what's going to happen to your kids when you're gone. The other perspective is mine. You're a 13, 14-year-old boy, the only person who's ever had your back in this world, the only person you know would come at a moment's notice, is in pain, suffering in front of you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And you're absolutely powerless. When I was 15, my mom died. I hated the world and everything in it. I tore down relationships. Everything that I achieved, I had broken it down. I was eventually kicked out of that school I worked so hard to get into. I distanced myself from my family. My brother went back to jail. The other one was back out of school. And again, I was homeless. Over the next year or so, I was in one of the darkest places of my life, doing things that I never thought I'd do, becoming a man that I never wanted to be and didn't want to become. Going into my senior year, I was 17 and I had to enroll myself into a new school. Imagine that. My grades was jacked up, could barely get into community college. One bright light was why I was being recruited by the Air Force. I had no direction. I was still angry. And while I was enrolling, I only had 2 options of schools, both of them being some of the worst in the state, one slightly being better than the other. So I fudged my paperwork so I could go to the better school. Only problem with that is you can't get transportation when you do that. So I would get to school pretty fine, but there was days where I would have to walk 15 miles from school to home just to make it back. One day on my travels back home, in the middle school parking lot next door, there was a small little white bus. It always sat there, but for some reason it caught my eye. I walked up to it and I asked them, "Hey, what do you all do?" They say, "We're a part of the Boys and Girls Club." Funny thing about that was a friend of mine, when I was in 9th grade, tried to get me to go to the Boys and Girls Club. I laughed and joked on him and called him a kid because he was going to a daycare. Funny, I needed that daycare now. And so I signed up for the Boys and Girls Club just to get close enough to walk home. I would never go in at first, but eventually I did. And it brought a small piece of happiness back into my life. There was some really great people that really taught me a lot. And eventually I was introduced with the opportunity to participate in the Catapult program. Now at this point, I've lost everything twice. And when I heard about this internship, the first thing that came to my mind was money, dollar signs. And I can make a decent living this summer without having to struggle too much. But from day one, I realized that this wasn't just a place you came to get a check. This was the last opportunity to change my life. So I went in with a full head of steam. And yeah, there were some bumps in the road. I lost my transportation. Thought for sure I'd get fired. But at that critical moment, I made a decision. From this point forward, nothing else is going to deter me from what I want in this world. And so I plotted a bus route, and I got as close as I could to the building, and I would walk the next 5 to 7 miles and beat my trainer there every day just to prove a point. This is not gonna stop me. After all of that, I still wasn't offered full-time employment at Capital One. So I enrolled myself in community college and was working overnight at a warehouse. Most people would have forgot about the internship, but I kept in touch and I kept trying. And eventually I was offered a second opportunity to go back through the program. But unsure if I would get the job or not, I continued to work at the warehouse and go to school full-time. Working at the warehouse 5 days a week, 10 to 7. Going into Capital One 5 days a week, 8 to 5. And then going back to school that same week. I've been at Capital One almost 2 years now. I'm 20 years old. I'm a leader in my community. I host resume workshops. I'm a leader among my peers and a mentor. I'm valued at my place of business. My life has value. I have my own house now. Have my own car. I take care of my family. I uplift my community. That same community that rejected me looks at me as a beacon of hope now. What I ask that you all take from this is not a sob story or to be sorry, but a call to action. That anything that gets in your way, you'll fight for it by any means necessary. Thank you.